And please welcome Richard to the show this evening. Hello there.
Hi there. How do I follow that kind of act, man? I've got to do a double Shirley Temple dance on stage. I know.
It's good to hear your voice. It's nice to have you on board, and I know you're a little under the weather, but thank you for joining us. You're going to put me on a guilt trip now.
Yeah.
But you sound good. Well, what's creepy?
Well, I'm in recovery. This is my third week down. I'm getting better. It's still there. You can feel it moving around. It's not Morgellons, but it's like that creepy feeling of something under your skin moving around. Virus.
Where exactly in your skin? What part of your body is it in?
Oh, where would you like to look first? Let's see. Adenoids and tonsils. Oh, wait. Then we go down into, synovial fluid. It's creepy. It's like the Epstein-Barr virus. Mononucleosis. It's like mononucleosis. Now, I was looking up, viruses and other kinds of ailments that have similar situations. And guess what I'm discovering?
What?
Oh, man. Well, let's see. Ebola,
pick one, spin the wheel.
Radiation sickness. They're all the same.
I know. We have to laugh, don't we? Otherwise, I'm just going to scream. Okay.
They're all something is poisoning us, and it's done with intent. And there's something else going on. Seventh planet, Nibiru, whatever. I don't get it. I don't understand why they're not giving at least minor disclosure. I mean, okay, wait. Their Science News last month had Nibiru, Planet X on the front cover, and Scientific American talked about it this month in one of their issues. Now, there is something happening. What is the big speculation? Even NASA, NOAA, whatever, none of them know it. I'll tell you what I do know. I was watching The Day After Tomorrow again, and from an apocalypse point of view and global warming, that is the most accurate movie that has ever been made on apocalypse. Not 2012, not da-da-da, none of this, none of that. That movie, in terms of an ice age and the way Los Angeles is going to be torn apart with tornadoes. Now, that is a literal system of possibilities because of desalinization of the ocean. And in terms of what they're telling us with geoengineering and what they're trying to make changes in. Barium oxide is a salt, by the way. And so who knows what's really going on?
Chaos in motion.
Geoengineering, we thought down here in Portland, we're getting hammered in Southern Oregon. And I mean, the wells are going dry. It was 76 degrees today and rained. Now, that's crazy. Everything's blooming. Everything. All the wildflowers are up. Every single one of them. And so we're a month and a half ahead of schedule. Wells are going dry in Southern Oregon, Jefferson, and I'm being poisoned by something in the air. In my opinion, I don't know that it's geoengineering. Just as easily be particulate that's falling from Fukushima. Fukushima is far worse right now, this moment, than anybody's talking about.
I agree with you. Well, it's been bad since day one. I mean, they just shoved it under the carpet. That's the bottom line. But who knows? I suspect, and I feel the same way you do insofar as I think that everything feels very contaminated. To me, it feels like I just need to completely detox my system. I feel really toxic. And it's not like I'm eating an unhealthy diet or something. I mean, literally, there's something wrong in the atmosphere. And I've noticed this for a while now. So, yeah, I think we're constantly being polluted. We're constantly being poisoned. And it's making, it'll wear you down.
There's going to be, there's going to a couple of buddies of mine, military. I can't talk much about it. That did that little escapade down in Santa Barbara, was showing how the fragile grid is, are up filming some aircraft that is the geoengineering thing. They're actually getting video of it right this moment up in Chilliwack, Canada. And that's a small airfield up there. It's a United Nations project. What are they doing? And what's actually in that propellant?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, there was a video that just came up by Carnicom's girlfriend, and her forensics is impeccable. I cannot be snowed. My academic background is of such a caliber that when someone's talking about analysis using, I don't know, chromatography, whatever, I know if they know what they're talking about, because even if I don't know the subject, I know the correct terminology. Mm-hmm. And okay, so that's my edge if I can't be snowed. And this woman drills it. Her video is, they're talking about a new red blood cell genome never seen before. What's that doing in a chemtrail?
Right. Well, they're totally, well, you have the mercury, barium, aluminum, who knows, whatever else.
Just that. There's that red blood cell.
Right.
There's that polymer. And then, of course, that, what do they call it? Extremovite bacterium that has been modified to be a nanobot.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, you look at it, Richard, it's biochemical warfare. I don't care. That's the bottom line. And I do want names. I mean, I want to know who these people are that are poisoning us every single freaking day and making everybody sick. That's the bottom line. It's a slow kill.
What do you do to defend yourself?
Well, that's my question to you. I mean, what can you do? Live in a bubble?
All right. So I have been
I guess.
some serious pause. I mean, trying to figure out, how do I get myself cured? Mm-hmm. And, well, this sickness I'm encountering seems or appears to have a multi-dimensional element to it, where the emotional depression is a kind of sickness like the flu. Mm-hmm. Now, I think that we're being attacked on levels of consciousness that we are unfamiliar and new territory for us. Mm-hmm. And because of that, this war is being fought with weapons we've never yet conceived. And I'm not talking about airborne and, lacing it with something. I'm talking about the war for Earth is multidimensional. It's as if the fourth genome blood type, the one that's an unknown, that's what makes us Homo sapiens, and they don't know where it came from because it didn't come from Earth, Nephilim, whatever. Okay, so that genome blood type, rhesus negative, that place is now in all of us, and the war for Earth is going on inside each of us on a metaphorical level. And this sickness is like that. I am battling my mind in terms of getting back into health, and I'm being challenged on multi-levels.
Right. What comes to mind for healing is frequency-based healing, something along the lines of frequency. What also comes to mind when you're talking about this type of what's happening on the multidimensional body or multidimensional design? It sounds to me like they're deploying biomagnetic directed energy weapons, attacking using some kind of some form of nanotechnology. That's my own take anyway. But it is affecting something it's doing something to the electromagnetic field. It's affecting the emotional body. And you're not the first person that I've talked to that's had something like this happen. So I think there's definitely something being broadcast.
Well, at least it's archetypally similar in the metaphor of experience, like a targeted individual. Something's wrong here.
Right.
And I can't, and I'm real good at what I do, and I can't put my finger on it. It's elusive.
No, go ahead.
It's elusive. And so I have taken a whole new approach toward the concept of sovereignty and what that actually literally means. Now, the Greek had all kinds of different levels of awareness. Their form of culture was so rich in metaphor, working with archetypes and mythology, that it had an element of medicine to it, because there were so many big stories in the city, 22, path working, and you knew the outcome, which means, like I was teasing you earlier, and I said you're either possessed or complexed. I said that.
I think I'm possessed.
Well, possessed means there's only one God working in
but
you.
It's not my fault.
Complex means you've got more than one God. Now that
wait a minute now.
that means there's more than one story going on in you.
You're very interesting. Okay.
Okay, now that's Jungian imaginal psychology. And their form of illness is related to your emotional body and internal landscape. And the idea is that the illness is how your higher self is trying to communicate to your conscious ego. And once your conscious ego gets the message, there's no need for the illness. And that's like cancer. Cancer is always directly related to anger. And everybody that has cancer starts with anger. And so the idea of knowing how the movie's going to play, the ending of the story, like Psyche at the Well, that plays then allows you to interplay the complexity and change the movie. If that you don't want that outcome, you're not going to want to work with that God much longer.
Right, very true. Steve Travesty made a point. He texted about shungite. You saw that, okay? Yeah.
The little fullerenes. Yeah, there you go.
So does that help you at all?
Poisoning me too.
What's that?
They're doing fullerenes and these shungite is activated charcoal. That's essentially what shungite from Russia is. It's activated charcoal. You can make it out of your campfire if you want to. I mean, at some point, guess what? You're maybe going to have to pot your own water. I'm going to tell you this. We're getting hammered right this moment with an X-band that happened off the CMA off the sun yesterday. And we may lose some of our grid because of it. And it's happening right this minute. And so stay tuned on how this plays. That's what Matt Stein and I are going to do, is the workshop Game Over. And it's, what are you going to do? And right now, I'm going to tell everybody listening in this audience that if you don't have your water together tonight, you're in a world of hurt. I am not kidding. You need to have a minimum of 3 days of water on hand for every single person in your family, including animals. They're humans. They're like your humans, like my girlfriend's dog.
Family. Yeah.
She's more involved with her dog than me.
I understand.
Well, there's a type of, I watched this Hachi, the movie Hachi. With Richard
right,
Gere.
yeah.
Oh, man. Animals are closer to spirit. That's what causes us to be so attracted to them and their level of devotion and relationship to the others around them. It's different, like being whelped in a litter as opposed to being whacked on the butt and fingerprinted like they do in normal medicine. It's crazy.
It's one
the
big.
whole thing.
Yeah, it's
is
a floating
hostile.
asylum, Richard. I said it's a floating asylum. That's what it's become.
Yeah.
The world. It's become psychotic. Let's be sure.
You already had a purchase for that. And guess what? Our number 1% represents the least human element of us. Right, and that's what makes me pause to think maybe something else is going on here.
Right. And before you run away with this train here, let's back it up and go someplace else for a second. You did talk about Game Over. Now, that's the workshop you have coming around the corner. When is that coming out?
That's in Lebanon, Missouri, March 27th. Matt Stein and I are going to do this thing to open up the USA Prepares .com convention. There's going to be everybody there, probably 4,000 or 5,000 people. Sheriff Mack, Dr. Norm Shaley, Aaron Dakin, everybody's going to be there, and everybody's an expert. I'm looking forward to a couple of friends of mine that are really cool. This one guy's got a dog that rides on his motorcycle with goggles, and they carry guns. It's a wonder. Republican.
It reminds me of Mad Max Gone Bad or something. Even worse than before.
It's all drama.
And, God, I can't take anymore. I'm telling you, I feel like screaming on air. I mean, this isn't you. I mean, seriously, I think everybody has had enough of this crazy crap that's going on across the board.
Everybody is waking up. And there's an interesting element. Helen Down, who's visiting from Australia, wanted me to mention indigo children. There is something else happening now in awareness, and it's exciting. And it means rather than see everything like my sickness as a doom and gloom, that maybe this is an opportunity for me to make changes in the way I'm living.
Well, you know what, though? I will say one thing. We all do pretty good insofar as a spiritual lifestyle, keeping ourselves pretty much balanced. No, seriously, but we're being contaminated and bombarded from all different angles. I mean, the water supply is contaminated. We have all sorts of technology being dispersed into the atmosphere now. You have mind games going on. We're getting hit from so many different angles, Richard. It's been almost virtually impossible for people to maintain some kind of a a healthy balance, if you ask me.
Well, that's because we're out of sync with ourselves. And that's the part of the lifestyle that's coming in as a brick wall. And once you get it, you have an opportunity to learn how to flow rather than create karma by fighting everything.
Well, I hear that too, but I don't believe in karma or dharma, honestly. I believe it's cause and effect. If they're creating a cause, then the effect would be a repercussion. And the repercussion is people will get pissed off. And that's not karma. That's the reaction that they've created by being imbeciles and being, into this mass agenda of extermination.
You mean that Dick Cheney might actually have a Warburg judgment on him?
Yeah, he might. Universal code that might kick his butt out of the solar system, yeah.
Well, I think that the way David Icke put it, and in one of his, discourses, he said, Obama will say, there was nothing I could do about it. Like transnational corporations, aliens, whatever. Look, right now, we have no such thing as free will because we do not have full disclosure. That is the only way we could become God's favored.
I have to disagree with you on that. I mean, even if you have free will, we all have free will. By universal law, you have free will.
Is what Crowley called it.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't care what these guys are pulling. I don't care because it's a false matrix. But what people do have an obligation to do is learn the truth. And whether that's pursuing it by themselves. Right. I mean, you know that. I mean, as someone who's
in this says you can only go halfway to the door.
I mean, you have to do it yourself.
In other words, you will never know the real truth because there will be so many different false flags and layers. It's not, according to Castaneda, knowable. Doesn't work like that. See, that's the first assumption that we've made that may be needing revisioning.
Well, I think there's a lot of...
magic is physics with a mystery school.
Mm-hmm.
That means in anthropology, the woman doesn't need to know how an internal combustion engine works to drive the car with rituals like she turns the key to the right and she pushes this pedal in and does that ritual and has expectations of a behavior or reproducibility. Those are good scientific terms that allow her to have security of knowing how to manipulate her environment. Well, guess what? We're doing it that way. We don't have a clue. And mostly, we really don't. We're less than fourth grade. And
don't say we. Don't categorize everybody like that.
Well, I mean,
it's not true. Grade. Let me. I'm not trying to be the devil's advocate. I am being the dark goddess right now, but I will tell you one thing. Obviously, there are those who are more advanced than others on the timeline right now. That's obvious. There are many of us here who are very old souls. We have a lot of skill and knowledge, and we're not fourth graders. We're not children, and we see what's happening. We don't really belong
I feel inadequate, though, and I'm pretty good.
Well, I don't know if you're feeling inadequate. Maybe you're just under the weather, but I'm telling you, I feel like the dark goddess on fire. And I'll tell you point blank, I have facts. I don't need disclosure from these people. What I need is people to wake their asses up, excusing my French, and get on board with changing this false matrix to a real matrix where we can all be productive and happy and ascended on a higher level, where none of us,
So that's where the sovereign part comes in.
Absolutely.
The idea of your relationship to yourself.
Plus, I mean, but you change yourself, you change the world. We all know this. However, people need to change themselves at the highest level of consciousness, and then the world.
Well, and what is that? For each of us, it's a little different.
Possible, yeah. But
And
still,
so, well, that's why I give it to you, lady. An EQ, emotional intelligence, better than IQ. Trust me. Well, I know better. Intuition, the sense of self, and the relationship of what you do know about yourself. Right. Now, that part is where the real joy lies, in terms of being able to flow rather than create karma, to have that sense of self. And in order to do that, where's your water coming from? You have to depend on somebody else for that. Municipalities may fail. How are you going to get your water if the grid went down tonight from a coronal mass ejection for 3 days? It's back up. It'll be back up. What are you going to do for 3 days? And what are you going to do the first day in replacing it?
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. That's the survival issues that kick in, of course, and that's one of the things about preparing for possible problems and catastrophes or whatever else happens. Now, there's one level to it, and then there's another one. Now, the other level I'm looking at is the multidimensional level. Okay, on a linear scale, everything's going haywire. There's madness, there's insanity, there's oppression. It's not connected to any full light universal spectrum, and of course, it's defective and it's failing and it's imploding, and we know it's imploding. We know it is. So what do? Are you going to sink with that ship, or are you going to get on another one and get the hell away from it, navigate to the higher spectrum and observe from a higher level of consciousness and change the dynamic from that level? Now, that's my impression of what needs to be done. I'm not saying you're not a survivalist, but don't get too paranoid there.
Yeah, it's like I said, the USS America is taking on water. And I don't know whether it's going to sink or swim. I don't know what's going to happen. Gold, money.
Oh, it's sinking all right. It's going down fast.
But it's time to think about lifeboats.
Yeah, which one? Well, I agree with you on that one.
What would define sustainability?
Okay, go ahead and define it.
Well, how about being in the middle of nowhere and like what? Yeah, and there are shipping lanes that as they close down like they did along the coast there. Do you know what's going to happen to Walmart because of that strike that just got over with longshoremen? It's going to close Walmart's doors by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think Walmart's a loss.
China has gone up in price, and it's going to continue to go up. And at some point, you won't be able to buy your Nikoa or whatever phone thing you're using.
But that's all linear, Richard. I mean, all that stuff is material. What about the higher level of design? What about the real reason we're all even on this planet?
Radio free, revolution radio and transmission of ham radio and X-band.
Yeah, but what did we do before all that?
Well, the grid goes down and you won't be able to hear us.
No, but we'll have different kind of telepathy, I bet.
Last month, there was not a coronal mass ejection. It was actually a plasma filament that blew out of the sun in the opposite direction of Earth. It was called a kill shot. If it had gone to Earth, that discharge last month would have put the entire Earth back into the Stone Age. Mm-hmm. Now, that happened last month.
Right. But I'll tell you one thing about that whole thing, and I know Ed Dames has talked about that a lot also, the kill shot, and I just don't resonate with that. I really don't think it's going to be a kill shot like that. I don't think it's going to be anything coming from the sun at all. As a matter of fact, I think it's more about mankind misusing technology to take down the what's happened with this world. I mean, literally, I don't believe in anything happening. You notice how we're always protected? Notice how everybody gets all worked up about what's happening with the sun, and yet nothing ever really happens. Now, why is that? Obviously, there's a protection to some degree. But don't think about it. Now, but yet we're firing up CERN. Now, that to me is an anomaly. Now, that will generate anomalies across the board on the planet. And to me, that's a simulation of a black hole. And if they succeed in what they're after, they're going to be able to simulate a black hole. And that can be very hazardous to the world.
They're already doing gravity wave generators in Houston, Texas.
Yeah, we kind of touched on that last time you were on the show.
Yeah, and there are new technologies with magnetic monopoles that bend space-time. That is a Boeing project.
Well, let me ask you something.
I have this funny feeling. I don't know how to explain it. It's a metaphor. It's not real. Where my future is somehow talking to me right now and changing my past. And time is not what we think it is. And that's why the enteric nervous system and the concepts of instinct are reminiscent of ESP. You're outside space-time.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a relationship of self to that is where I think our finest weapons are, the imagination, the possibilities of what we can do in the day after tomorrow. That's an excellent movie, by the way. And actually, from a physics point of view, the Inuit are now saying the pole has already shifted across the pole.
Yeah, I saw that article. Yeah, very, very interesting.
Well, it wasn't an article, it was a bunch of them, because the Inuit can prove that things have changed up at the North Pole. Mm-hmm. And literally, they've changed. What's that about? The Hopi call that the ritual of the wobbled egg. And for the last 50 years, that's where Thomas Banaka, and before that, Grandfather Joseph, were talking about the instability of the Earth because of something coming in off elliptic around Neptune. That's your planet X, your Nibiru. Right. And it's interesting, the military people I hang out with, and I'm really, they're all over the place there, are all talking about Anunnaki.
Oh, lovely. Well,
I don't have any knowledge. I can tell you, Sumerian tablet-wise, that there is a strong evidence that something else is going on here.
Right. Well, they are us and we are them, Richard. I mean, if people are afraid of the Anunnaki, they better look in the mirror, as far as I'm concerned. Now, I will say one thing. Century after century, mankind has been on a defective course for century after century. And you have to ask yourself, what has mankind done to contribute to the world and the universe? I can't tell you what he's done, honestly. He said he has breakthroughs in science and technology, yet he's misused every bit of it. They say they're spiritually evolved, yet they butcher each other in the name of their dead gods and religions. So you tell me what's going on here, and you tell me I'm not afraid of what's happening in the universe that's going to change this world. I think it's necessary at this point in the continuum because man is on a self-destruct sequence. It is toxic. It is noxious. That is the way we started off this conversation. You were being sick. I'm being sick. We're being bombarded by some kind of eugenics program. Everybody's lying here. So something needs to come and clean the slate. What's your feedback on that?
I don't know what to do, Mommy.
Oh, gosh. I cracked the whip too hard. I'm so sorry. I tend to do that sometimes.
Okay. I believe that this is a call to arms for the evolution of consciousness, to take personal responsibility. Like the rapture never came and got me. I sat around waiting for it to be handed to me, and I had to go on it. And that's how you do it, one step at a time. And that's the problem. It is not a goal. It is a process. That's the metaphor again of stories in the big unit, in the big city kind of thing. There are so many different archetypal ways it can play. How do you want to interplay with your personal story?
Right. And
that's pathworking. That is the nature of what magic is.
I agree.
To take responsibility for your own evolution.
Right. Well, I take responsibility for me. I don't appreciate corporate government trying to crap all over my DNA. I'll tell you that much. But I will tell you one thing. Now, ascension is really what we're talking about here. Global universal ascension. I'm not talking religious ascension. I'm talking consciousness ascension in a quickening of what they call it, DNA activation. Now, obviously, through frequency in the full light universal spectrum, we are changing our DNA naturally through harmonics and frequency. What they're trying to do is alter the DNA in the process to redirect that flow and create this kind of sabotage, which is like their own version of pulling us down into their version of whatever agenda they have. What's your impression of that? Don't you see that happen?
I sense there's truth there. I don't know. I sense that there is a change in things because I can see them in myself. Mm-hmm. I'm watching how things are changing around me because of my attitudes. Like, for example, I have a responsibility for the thoughts I choose to entertain, whether, sexual, whatever. When they crop up, that come from the media trying to hype me into some sort of belief system, or am I got some neurotic thing from childhood that is leaching itself through my behavior patterns and causing me to behave and see things a certain way. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether it's someone else doing it to me or I'm doing it to myself. The gift I have is that I can either put energy into it or I can dismiss it. That's the purpose of meditation, training the mind.
Let me say something. Oh, no, go ahead. I'll let you finish. I do want to interject.
No, it's okay. Training the mind is the part of it that is taking responsibility.
I totally agree.
Child, yeah,
you're right on about that. But a lot of people don't want to take the responsibility. They want somebody.
Well, it isn't that. It's we're complacent. And how did they do it in War of the Worlds when Klaatu is talking to the scientist, and the scientist says it's only when man is in crisis that he becomes more. He said that in the War of the Worlds movie, and was it was it War of the Worlds? Something like that.
I want that robot. That's all I know.
No, it wasn't the robot. It was Klaatu talking to the scientist.
Oh, okay.
And they're about to snuff the earth, and the scientist says man's worth saving because at his very, worst, he's at his very best.
I believe there are certain species here on the earth that are masked as quote unquote humanoids, which are not, that are actually worth, ascending and saving or protecting and shielding. There are a lot that are what I call entity controlled and cannot be helped. And that's my own impression of the whole scenario, which of course they will go back from whence they've come, which means if they came from nothingness, that's where they go. When we come from the full light spectrum, we go back to the full light spectrum. That's my own impression of how this process works. Now, you talked a little bit about the lifeboats. And I do want to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about lifeboats, because what about getting beings together who actually are switched on on a level of higher consciousness, don't want to be participating with the illusion anymore? And is there a possibility we can network and get everybody to go to an area that feels like a new frontier or a safe location? It used to be America. Maybe it's time for us to really consider taking those who are really ascended in consciousness and moving together as a unit away from this crap. What do you think?
Well, the new Americas, that's what they're doing in Central and South America. It's weird. All of smart money. Actually, there are groups of 5%ers, not 1%ers, the 5%ers that have millions of dollars that realize that their money isn't possibly going to mean anything shortly and are investing in seats on a lifeboat for their grandchildren. That is happening. And, these little infrastructures like the Nazis when they went to Argentina and Antarctica, that place is happening now. And
I'd like to go to Antarctica at this point in the continuum, and I'll tell you one right now. I think when CERN gets switched on, we're in for some interesting anomalies. I would be focused on that. I think we're going to see some very interesting things happening energetically and frequency oriented when they fire that thing up.
Yeah, that's a concern. CERN is a serious concern.
I don't know if it's a concern, though. I mean, it's going to change things, but I don't know if it's necessarily a negative.
Well, they're going to be working with energies that are beyond imagination.
Right, but they're going to blow out all this drama, though. What they can do with the CERN, let me just go here for a second. They can blow out the false matrix with that technology. They can push it out completely, reset everything so that people are not subjected to the lie and the dreamlike hypnosis that they're going through. I know that they can do that through frequency of that device. There's no doubt about it. So
blocking the sunlight with geoengineering would limit man's development.
Yeah, that switches off the DNA right there. Anytime you block the sunlight, you're shutting down light body, and you know it, and I know it. Anybody who's done any type of work with Merkaba or light consciousness. Yeah,
so Russia last year had a 25% reduction in the light that hit their country because of forest fires. Now, that affects plant growth and crops and weather. This movie, The Day After Tomorrow, is actually, in fact, technically the most accurate doomsday prophecy, what-if scenario of anything out there. They have a brand new series on apocalypse on TV now. It's funny spelled the way it's apocalypse, but it's the usual droll hero that makes the wrong decisions. But Well, it's going to go like that. I read some reviews. But this Day After Tomorrow is talking about the desalinization of our ocean. Mm-hmm. And there is a critical marker point where the salt ratio makes changes in the airstreams that we normally associate with the different currents on Earth. Right. Suspicious Observer is talking about that right now. It's pretty scary. That part has to do with global warming. Mm-hmm. Now, there's global warming on Mars.
Well, there's a lot going on Mars.
Well, that's because, okay, there's global warming on Neptune.
There's all sorts of atmospheres.
The entire heliosphere is heating up.
Yeah. Let's go there.
Well, now, what does that mean? It means that this is not a man-made thing so much as a historic marker that has happened before.
Well, that's true. Everything repeats itself, doesn't it?
Well,
to some degree.
This this planet thing that's coming off elliptic out near Neptune that even the sciences are talking about now is most likely, I don't know what it is, most likely a dead dwarf binary to our sun, and has a 3,600 year cycle that has historically been discussed, with markers in history when it happened, affecting the sun. Oh, guess what? The sun is being affected, and that's how science noted was the perturbations in Neptune because of it. It's coming in. It's literal. So what does that suggest? It would suggest that mythology has an element of truth through it, like smoke when there's fire.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I agree with you on that one. Yeah, it is a historical marker. But at the same time, I see this as exciting times. When I look at the universe and I see what's happening in the universe, that to me is very exciting. When I see what mankind is doing to sabotage the experience of excitement here on this world, that ticks me off because it's always drama here on Earth. They always have to have drama. Mainstream has to have drama. DC has to have drama. They always have to be conflicting. They can't get along. Nobody can coexist. It gets old, and I'm tired of it. And I know everybody else is as well. I mean, it just gets too old.
So when the Ukraine war started, and there were a bunch of Russians and Ukrainians that were killed by the same weapon, how does that work?
Yeah,
that's a manipulation. That was not a war that broke out like Ferguson. That was an intentional political move. I hope Putin is going to be okay. Putin is, believe this or not, Putin is the first president in Russian history that's actually tried to give Russia back to Russia.
I think he's all right. I think he surfaced. I think that whole thing was propaganda, wasn't it?
I think it's about oil.
Well, I know, but he's okay. He didn't die. He's all right. Why is everybody all talking about that? I noticed I heard something about it, but I think that was just BS as far as I can tell. So
there's more. Yeah. There goes the crud on me. Yeah.
That's all right. Take a drink of water or tea or something.
I'm doing
I can talk. Well, they are being used as pawns on the chessboard. There's no doubt about it. Everybody's being manipulated, whether it's through some kind of a psyop, psychotronic warfare, covert mind control programs. I know. We know their tactics, their manipulation tactics. We understand what they do. We hear what they say. We watch what they do. We understand their game playing, but we're tired of it. And the bottom line is, what are we supposed to do? Get bullied and bullied and bullied and pushed and pushed and pushed until we lose it? Or are we just supposed to break orbit with the planet? What is the solution to this equation? Because we can talk about this. We do it all the time. The hosts do it all the time.
I would say the first thing to do is secure your source of water. That would be the first thing you personally should do. And when I say that, I mean everybody listening to me. Your first step, getting off the couch, taking your first step, secure your water. If we have any kind of grid collapse, and we will, FEMA is there when municipalities fail to deliver. And when the municipality fails to deliver, what is your source? You're going to go down to the store and get it?
Right. You need a well and
Well, no, you need more than just a well, because who knows what's going to contaminate. Well, I have a well.
That's true too. Now that's another thing. So even if you store the water, it can get contaminated.
There's all kinds of things, bromine, whatever. How do you pot water? In other words, you've got your 3 days of water, which is probably what you need to do tomorrow morning. And make certain that you have 3 days of water for everyone in your household or more. Then, the second day, you make certain you have a plan on how to replace your water the first day you start using it.
No, I agree with you on that one. People need to be prepared, but I can tell you point blank, most people aren't. And if they lose water, I mean, just to flush the toilet alone takes quite a bit of water to do that.
Well, then FEMA, and that we're not even talking about hygiene or, flushing toilets, where FEMA will be like a Hotel California.
Yeah. So is DC.
You check in. And once you check in, you're part of their system.
Yeah, that's part of the politicians.
All different thing in terms of regulations and ability to give you immunization and other kinds of rulings that you lose rights because of your need for water. Well, sovereignty has many faces, and you start with the physical plane, the basic elements of earth, air, fire, and water. There's other things. There's spirit. There's, the hexagram is full of metaphors, in terms of levels of resolution. You have your physical plane, your emotional, your intellectual, your archetypal. The archetypal plane is only 4 up of 8 planes to God, and that one is where you and I are the same person.
Right.
Collective unconscious. And so that's only halfway.
Right. Let me interject something here real quick. The immunization factor, obviously, I think there's some talk about immunization, forced immunization through aerosol spraying, deploying through probably something similar to chemtrails. Excuse me. Now my question, well, they're modifying and trying to modify the DNA or already.
It's called the bio-API.
Yeah, there you go. Right. So let me ask you something. As an esoteric magician, and I come from that craft as well, what is your impression of what this is doing to the elementals, to other beings and life forms that exist in very close dimensional spaces between here and where they are?
If an elemental is like a lesser part of you, it's like your shadow. It's a part of you in relationship to something like the sun. And it projects it down into lesser dimensions, demon, an elemental, spirit force, that's more primitive, a lesser dimension concept of you, and is a reflection of you, like a fat doctor. What's wrong with that picture?
Well, they're all going to retire now. They hear the radio.
Well, I'm just trying to say something about medicine.
I know.
If a doctor is fat, it means he can't heal you because he can't do it for himself. That's a good
making too much money and eating too many steaks. Yeah.
Well, okay, so then you start to look at elementals from that kind of a perspective, where they're a scalar or a lesser part of yourself. They're you in lesser dimensions of information, like the physical plane is lesser information than the emotional plane on how you feel about something. It is the physical plane with more content.
Right.
It is higher dimension. That's what you are to that elemental. And these elemental parts of self are the first string of relationship, because if you're looking at the elemental, you know how the spiritual is going. Because it's a reflection, like a fat doctor. That doctor isn't very healthy.
Right. I call it the mirror between worlds, And one thing I wanted to mention also, the universal life force energy, that whole beautiful prana, that which extends into all universes and star systems, that creates life and obviously descends onto the world and creates life here. Now, without that universal life force energy, without our universal life force energy, we don't exist. And I think that with all this bioengineering, geoengineering, and the manipulation they're doing, they're trying to snuff out the life force and the prana, not only of the earth, but the elementals, the nature spirits, the animals, and obviously us. So do you see that? Do you see that mirror?
You're calling me a hologram, and if they turn off the light, I cease to exist as a protection or a waveform in space.
Well, we project. That's what I mean. Keep your benchmark in the
worse.
universe. My point is keep your benchmark in the universe, because that's really where the power lies. This whole false matrix is going down, and we all know it. You even said so. So let's make sure we stay anchored in the full light spectrum opposed to what's here.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Has many faces too. Yeah. Now, but my recommendation is your first step is water, because water is structured, has intent, and is absolutely to health in terms of placebo. And what your personal internal beliefs are doing and how it structures the water inside an organ. So, and we've got the physics on that now.
Well, you know, water's alien too, Richard. I mean, it's not from here, if you ask me. I mean, to me, I think water containing the consciousness is an alien life form.
Well, okay. Let's take a look at exclusion zone water for a minute. Exclusion zone water is H3O2. That's the fourth phase of water. And really, what makes water so interesting is because of how small it is. Hydrogen and oxygen. There it is. And, you know, number 1, number 6. They're like the smallest possible molecule possible. You know, it's hydrogen and oxygen. So what you do is look at the way it touches something foreign. If it's plastic, there's a structuring where there's very little surface tension. If it's indium, you know, one of the metals, the water will structure itself because of the way it touches that. Like if you drop baking soda or a piece of salt in the water. This is the desalinization concept I'm talking about, and how the ocean is structured because of the salt that's in it. Now, okay, that creates a memory. And that memory is 6 zeros more accurate than gallium arsenide and what's called the forbidden zone, to be distinguished differently from exclusion zone. And that means that water is a more powerful computer by 6 orders of magnitude. That means it could structure who you were in past lives and future lives in the structure of the water inside your body. That's how accurate that
I agree.
Computer system is.
I totally agree with you. Yeah. Well, that's what the thing is. You know, Richard, we're multidimensional. We're so fascinating as beings, as life forms, with all of this data that we contain. And that's what bothers me the most, is that they don't have a right. Nobody has a right to poison these archives, these internal celestial archives, you know.
That is what you call Liber Oz. That was what Crowley suggested was the right.
And Richard, we're going to head for a break. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back. Ravenstar's Witching Hour. Richard Allen Miller.